This is your host, Danny, and this is History Plus from English Plus Podcast. Well, this is the newest addition to our episodes. Well, I thought to myself that since we're doing myths and legends and they're already about the Greek mythology, and we also have Learn from Games or Dan RPG, and it is about the Odyssey, which is about the story of Alexios for the ones who listened to episode 1 and 2. So the only one link missing, and this is easily available to add, is the historic tours of ancient Greece. And fortunately, we can do all that in video and in audio. So I'm going to have that in audio, but to be honest with you, the best possible experience for you in this one is to watch it in video, because you will see amazing structures and you will really understand the descriptions of these places. It is meant to be a tour, but if you're just listening, that's also fine, because there's a lot of information that you will learn about ancient Greece. I am choosing ancient Greece because that goes along with both the Odyssey series and the Greek mythology series. So now we're talking about the Greek world, both history, mythology, and also in a light form of a game that we can learn a lot from. You know that I just didn't pick a game and I'm just playing it. No, this game has a lot of information and a very interesting story that you can learn from. And by the way, even in the game, we're going to meet real people like Socrates, Herodotus, and others. But this episode is History Plus. We are going to talk about history, and if you really want to enjoy it the most, take the link you can find in the description and go to the website, to the custom post I created for this episode. There you will also find the video of this episode, which will really make your experience as rich as I hope it will be. And don't forget, there's another link in the description that will take you to my Patreon page. English Plus needs you, I need you, and the whole learning community needs your support. We need support to be able to continue, to be independent, and continue creating for our learning community with no worries about any financial issues that might occur. So I hope you're feeling generous enough. Take the link and go to Patreon, become a patron, support us, help us survive, grow, and thrive. And now, without further ado, let's start with our very first guided tour, and this one is going to be a tour of a very special place in Athens, and that is the Acropolis. Enjoy.
Here, visitor, you are about to embark on a journey of discovery through the rich and fascinating history of classical Greece. Along the way, exchange words with some of Greece's most famous historical persons. The classical Greece you are about to explore is at the peak of its glory. This period is synonymous with grand accomplishments of the physical and the mental. Architectural marvels which still stand today dot its landscape, while towering achievements in philosophy, political systems, and art still influence our modern society in profound ways. We hope you become engrossed in the dazzling riches of ancient Greece and welcome you to your visit.
Greetings, wanderer, and welcome to the Acropolis, the shining jewel of Athens. My name is Aspasia. Though I am not originally from Athens, I have climbed to the top of its social ladder using my wit and intellect. I've even earned the love of Pericles, one of the most powerful men in the city. The mind truly is a beautiful thing. Personally, I think the Acropolis is one of, if not the, greatest place in all of Greece. Though, considering it was the project of my partner, Pericles, I may be a touch biased. The Acropolis of Athens is a bastion of art and culture worthy of the gods themselves. Within this citadel, you will find many important sacred buildings, as well as some of the most magnificent art in all of Greece. You are in for a very enlightening visit. When you're done, come find me, and we can discuss the things you have seen. Farewell for now.
The Acropolis has gone through many changes in its long history. It began as a simple rock, was settled as early as the Neolithic period, and then became a fortress in the Mycenaean period. Stone buildings started appearing in the 7th century BCE. But the famous structures whose ruins remain visible today date mainly from a period of construction in the 5th century BCE. The location of the Acropolis is closely tied with Athens' foundation myth. Supposedly, it was the site where Athena and Poseidon competed for the city's patronage. This connection gave the Acropolis a sacred aura, and it was considered the religious heart of the city.
And now let's learn more about the Acropolis origins. After the archaic buildings of the old Acropolis, most notably the Temple of Athena Polias, were burned down in 480 BCE by Xerxes' Persian army, the great general and statesman Pericles resolved to transform the naturally imposing rock into a huge monument to Athens' political, military, and cultural greatness. Thus began the most ambitious building program the Greek world had ever seen at the time. Several million drachmae were spent on the whole project, which has been deemed by UNESCO as the supreme expression of the adaptation of architecture to a natural site. The Parthenon alone cost 469 talents, nearly 3 million drachmae, and the equivalent of approximately 12 tons of silver. To justify the massive cost, Pericles cited the need to immortalize Athens' greatness, but also called attention to the jobs the project would create for hundreds of stonecutters, carpenters, metal workers, painters, and unskilled laborers, all of whom were grateful for the opportunity to make more money.
The Temple of Athena Nike was built on the remains of old fortifications from the Mycenaean era. Worship at the temple can be traced back to the 6th century BCE, but the building itself was destroyed during the Greco-Persian Wars a century later. It was rebuilt during the Peloponnesian War. Given that the name Athena Nike roughly means Athena of victory, it was likely constructed in the hopes that Athens would win the war. Unusually, the temple depicts historical scenes of battles against the Persians instead of the more mythologically inclined art of other Greek buildings. The temple's priestess was chosen randomly among the Athenians and received a salary of 50 drachmae annually, along with skins and trophies from sacrificed animals.
And now let's learn more about the Temple of Athena Nike. The area where the Temple of Athena Nike was built offers a beautiful view of the southern shores of Attica, along with the ports of Piraeus and Phaleron. The noteworthy feature, as well as the Mycenaean ruins nearby, were the basis for the assumption that Aegeus, the 9th king of the old Athenian dynasty, watched the sea from here in the hopes of seeing his son Theseus returning safe and sound from Crete. Theseus, the most important Athenian mythological hero, had left for Crete under the guise of one of the youth sent to feed the Minotaur. Theseus promised Aegeus that he would kill the monster and bring back the Athenian youth on a ship flying white sails, symbolizing victory and joy. The hero slew the Minotaur and sailed home, but forgot to replace his ship's dark morning sails with lighter ones. When Aegeus saw the dark sails, he assumed Theseus had died. Stricken with grief, the king threw himself off the steep bastion of the Acropolis, meeting his death on the ground below. However, other versions of the myth tell that Aegeus flung himself into the sea, which consequently took his name, the Aegean.
The Acropolis was built up over a long period, due in no small part to its partial destruction during the Greco-Persian Wars. It was in the 5th century BCE, though, that the Acropolis received its most significant improvements. This period was an extremely prosperous time for Athens, both financially and culturally. With a booming economy bolstered by trade and the Lavrion silver mines, Pericles, the leader of Athens, financed a huge project to rebuild the citadel. He enlisted the help of renowned artists, like the sculptor Phidias, as well as the architects Iktinos and Callicrates. Together, they erected buildings like the Parthenon and the Propylaea Gateway. Pericles' goal was to make the Acropolis into a glorious monument to the gods and to mortal Athenians.
Now let's learn more about Pericles' Acropolis. The history of the Acropolis did not end with the Periclean building program. In antiquity, fires and invasions often imperiled or even destroyed parts of the Acropolis, forcing Athenians and foreign admirers of the site to restore, embellish, and protect the remnants of Pericles' achievements. For example, a ceremonial entrance in front of the Propylaea was built by F. Septimius Marcellinus circa 208 CE, with stone quarried from nearby monuments which had recently been destroyed by a Germanic invasion. It is known as the Boulay Gate, named after its first modern excavator. The Acropolis had many uses throughout history. Under Byzantine rule, it hosted pilgrims seeking to visit the Parthenon, which had been transformed into a church. After the Fourth Crusade, it housed a Roman Catholic cathedral as well as the palace of the Latin Duke of Athens. In Ottoman times, it acted as a fortress for protecting mosques, living quarters, and the harem of the local governor. It was only in the first half of the 19th century CE that the newly independent modern Greek state decided to revive the Acropolis's classical ruins. The medieval and modern buildings were removed, and the site's restoration has been going on ever since.
Behind the Propylaea was the giant bronze statue of Athena Promachos, or Athena who fights on the front lines. That name was reflected in the spear and shield the statue held in its hands. It was erected in the mid-5th century BCE by the artist Phidias. According to an inscription, it took 9 years to make and cost almost 500,000 drachmae. At approximately 10 meters tall, the statue was apparently so large that Pausanias claimed its helmet and spear tip could be seen from the sea near Cape Sunion, 60 kilometers away. The ornamentation on the statue's shield was engraved by the metalsmith Mies.
Now let's learn more about Athena Promachus. Athena, who was miraculously born from Zeus's head, was one of the most important deities in the Greek pantheon. In the Bronze Age, she was an Aegean goddess who protected lucrative palatial and household activities such as wool processing. Later on, she became the patron deity of many ancient Greek cities, with Athens being only the best known among them. However, she still kept her place as the protector of artisans, spinners, weavers, smiths, and the like. The goddess had numerous epithets reflecting specific attributes, including Athena Polias, the protector of the city, Athena Ergani, the protector of crafts, and Athena Promachus, fighting in the first rank, which alluded to her worship as a martial deity. She was also conceived as the goddess of wisdom, and her most famous symbol was the owl, which was often engraved on Athenian coins and painted on vases. Now let's learn more about priest houses on the Acropolis. In ancient Greece, priests and priestesses were either designated or elected from among citizens and clerical families. They performed sacred rituals on special occasions like festivals or when otherwise required. Priest houses are often linked with the priesthood, but priests did not actually live in them, preferring to stay at their own homes in the city's residential quarter. Instead, the main purpose of priest houses was to provide priests with a space to carry out their rituals during specific days on the religious calendar. Priest houses were considered too sacred for the mundane activities of daily life, and priests had to perform purification rituals such as a period of chastity before they were allowed to enter.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking to enhance your English skills while exploring a world of knowledge? Then English Plus Podcast website is just for you. Dive into diverse topics ranging from science to literature, history to business, and myths to modern insights. Each episode from our podcast or article from our magazine is a journey of learning and discovery, designed to not only improve your language skills, but also broaden your understanding of the world. Join us at English Plus Podcast, where language meets limitless learning. Tune in today and take your English to the next level. Visit EnglishPlusPodcast.com to start your journey. English Plus Podcast, language, learning, enlightenment. Never stop learning with English Plus.
The Acropolis were young girls between the ages of 7 and 11 who were in charge of special rites. A list of 4 girls was drafted by the Assembly of Citizens, from which the High Magistrate, the Archon Basileus, chose 2 to serve as Acropolis for the year. The girls lived in a house on the Acropolis. They were in charge of carrying sacred objects and weaving the peplos of Athena. The peplos was a sacred robe offered to Athena during Panathenea, a festival held in her honor.
Now let's learn more about the house of the Acropolis. The Acropolis were selected on the basis of noble birth, so only high-status girls had the privilege of serving Athena during the feasts of the Acrophoria and the Panathenea. Pausanias wrote that the 2 girls, whose designation meant bearers of mysteries or sacred offerings, performed a special rite during the Acrophoria. Their main duty was to descend from the Acropolis to a precinct of Aphrodite, carrying secret objects on their heads given to them by the priestess of Athena. Once at their destination, they left the objects and received something else in return. Neither the Acropolis nor the priestess knew what any of the objects were, as they were always covered. The Acropolis' other duty was to assist the temple's priestess in the sacred act of weaving Athena's peplos, or garment. This ritual took place over 9 months before the garment was finally offered to Athena at the Panathenea. Employing young, inexperienced Acropolis guaranteed the purity of the sacred robe. It also gave the girls the chance to learn how to spin and weave, which were the 2 most important tasks required of Greek women. Now let's learn more about the olive tree of Athena. Today, an olive tree grows on the western side of the Erechtheion. Although it was planted in 1952 by members of the American School of Archaeology, it is conveniently believed to be descendant from a sacred olive tree planted during the foundation of Athens. Myth says that when Athena and Poseidon competed to become the patron deity of the new city, they were required to bring gifts to its citizens. Athena struck the Acropolis with her spear, and the sacred olive tree sprouted from the ground. For these reasons, ancient Greeks thought the Athenian olive trees were the holiest in all of Hellas. Herodotus and Pausanias both report that the Persians burnt the tree in 480 BCE, only for it to grow again from its ashes on the very same day. This miraculous revival is the archetype for all the other subsequent resurrections of the tree.
The Erechtheion was an atypical temple. It was dedicated not only to Athena Polias, but also to Cecrops, the mythical founder of Athens, his son Erechtheos, and even Poseidon, the sea god who challenged Athena for possession of the city. The temple was divided into sections. The eastern part housed a statue dedicated to Athena, while the western section jointly belonged to Poseidon and Erechtheos. Meanwhile, King Cecrops' grave was believed to be under the caryatid porch. Under the temple was a crypt that was said to contain the sacred snakes of Athena. The snakes may have had a sweet tooth because the priestesses of Athena allegedly fed them honey cakes.
Now let's learn a little bit more about the Erechtheion. The Erechtheion's north court was a cloistered area where Athenians probably performed 2 specific religious rituals related to the festivals of Plynteria and Kalanteria. On Plynteria, the olive wood statue of Athena Polias was brought out of the temple, undressed, washed, and cleaned by 2 maidens who also washed its garments. Then on Kalanteria, the statue was redressed, redecked, and returned to its holy place. These 2 feasts, which had numerous funerary connotations, are always connected in the accounts of ancient writers. Athenians believed they were unlucky days because the goddess was otherwise occupied. and they accordingly avoided undertaking important activities until the statue was back in the temple. Now let's learn more about the altar of Athena. The most important element of ancient Greek cults was the sacrifice to gods. Consequently, the most important structures were the altars where the sacrifices were slaughtered and burned. Therefore, the great altar of Athena Polias, the patron deity of Athens, was the holiest and most significant monument on the Acropolis. The exact location of the altar is unknown, but it seems that it was erected to the east of the Erechtheion in the northernmost sacred part of the Acropolis. While other buildings were frequently dismantled and erected anew, the altar's position did not change for hundreds of years. In Pericles' time, the altar built around 525 BCE by the sons of the great tyrant Pisistratos was probably remodeled as an impressive stepped structure so that it could easily host sacrifices as large as the Panathenaea festival's hecatomb, which involved the slaughtering of 100 cattle. Now let's talk a little bit more about priesthood in those times. There was no professional qualification needed to become a priest or a priestess. A wealthy family, luck, and less often the will of the public assembly were the only criteria that mattered. Many priesthoods stayed within the same families or clans for generations, as the appointment of priests outside the members of the clan was strictly prohibited. For example, in Athens, both the priestess of Athena Polias and Poseidon Erechtheus had to come from the Etiobutadae. Priests and priestesses were in charge of the sacrifices to the gods and of any other cultic duties preserved by tradition. They also assisted political leaders and other citizens who wished to correctly perform public and private religious activities. Lastly, they presided over the affairs and resources of their assigned sanctuary. They were held in high esteem by their fellow citizens, and their political opinions carried a lot of weight in public debates. In certain cities, the annual priesthood of the main cult was even used as a way of measuring time. Priests and priestesses also received significant shares of the sacrifices they performed. Although priests generally enjoyed the same freedoms and rights as citizens, like that of living at their own homes, they also had to follow restrictive rules. Besides more general requirements such as fasting and undergoing a period of chastity before certain rituals, there were also strange restrictions. For example, in Attica, the priestess of Athena, Polias, was not allowed to eat cheese.
The Parthenon is one of the most well-known buildings in the world and an enduring symbol of ancient Greek civilization. While it is located on the Acropolis, the building is not a traditional temple. It was built by the sculptor Phidias and the architects Callicrates and Ictinus as a great monument to the glory of the city of Athens. That glory is evident in its many carvings. One of the most carved monuments in Greek architecture, the Parthenon's decorations depict several mythological scenes. These include the birth of Athena, her fight against Poseidon for the patronage of Athens, the gods' battle with the giants, and the procession of the great Panathenaea.
Now let's learn more about the Parthenon exterior. The Parthenon was built and decorated between 447 and 432 BCE, and the worship of Athena went on for nearly 1 millennium. Although the building was affected by the destruction caused by Germanic invaders in the 3rd century CE. In approximately 590 CE, it was turned into a Christian Greek church dedicated to Maria Parthenos, the Virgin Mary, and the new protector of Athens. The church became the 4th most important pilgrimage destination in the Byzantine Empire after Constantinople, Ephesus, and Thessalonica. After the Latin soldiers of the 4th Crusade captured Constantinople in 1204 CE, Athens became a Crusader duchy for 2.5 centuries, and the Orthodox Church became the Catholic Cathedral of Our Lady. The Ottoman conquest of 1458 CE transformed the Parthenon once again. This time, it became an Islamic mosque. Although refurbishments and additions were made to the building throughout its many iterations, the continued Christian and Muslim activity within the Parthenon helped preserve the monument better than many other ancient structures. Unfortunately, in 1687 CE, during the Venetian siege of the Ottoman fortress on the Acropolis, a cannonball shot struck the Parthenon, which was being used to store gunpowder. The roof was blown apart, 3 walls were severely damaged, and several columns and metopes fell to the ground, as well as most of the sculptures on the pediments and the frieze.
The Parthenon's inner chamber, or cella, contained a massive statue of Athena that was considered to be one of the sculptor Phidias's greatest masterpieces. The statue was chryselephantine, a combination of gold and ivory. To justify the steep cost of its construction, Pericles told Athenians that the statue was a gold reserve, which could be disassembled in times of economic distress. The cella also allegedly contained a pool, whose main purpose was to control the room's humidity, which helped preserve the statue's ivory.
Now let's learn more about the Parthenon interior. Some researchers have hypothesized that the Parthenon statue of Athena cost almost as much as the building itself. Unfortunately, the statue was either destroyed by fire or brought to Constantinople in late Roman times, where all trace of it was lost. Fortunately, descriptions from historians like Plutarch and Pausanias, as well as smaller copies like the marble Varvekeion statuette, allow for detailed reconstruction. The goddess was armed with a triple-crested helmet featuring a sphinx and 2 griffins, a big circular shield in her left hand, and a spear. She held a winged Nike 2 meters tall in her right hand, while a huge sacred snake was coiled between her left foot and the shield. She wore a typical peplos robe tucked into a belt, and on her chest was a snake-ridged aegis displaying the head of Medusa. Today, a modern replica of the statue stands in a copy of the Parthenon in Nashville, Tennessee. And now let's learn more about the Great Panathenaea. The Panathenaea was the most important religious festival in ancient Athens. It was held each year at the end of July and beginning of August. Every 4 years, the festival was celebrated on an even greater scale. This was known as the Great Panathenaea. According to some scholars, the Great Panathenaea was expanded from the Lesser Panathenaea by the tyrant Pisistratos in 566 BCE to serve as Athens' own versions of the Olympic Games. The celebrations included a day procession of Athenian citizens and resident aliens, athletic games, music and rhapsodic contests, a night procession with a torch relay race, great sacrifices, and communal feasting. The festival was so important to ancient Athenians that many iconographic, sculptural, and written testimonies of the celebrations were preserved. Furthermore, numerous Panathenaic amphoras or containers were discovered all over the Greek world. They were great vessels filled with the most expensive Athenian olive oil and were awarded to the winners of the Panathenaic Games. The amphoras were decorated with specific scenes such as young men running or Athena Promachus wearing military equipment, and they could be sold by the champions for significant amounts of money.
Athens' treasury was located in the Parthenon, where it was believed to be protected by Athena herself. The treasury contained objects of great value, acquired from different conquests, as well as a mass of minted silver coins and various offerings to Athena. Pericles also decided to move the entirety of the Delian League's treasure to the Parthenon in 454 BCE. This was a great testament to Athens' power over the rest of Greece. The riches were divided into 2 parts: the Demosia, which belonged to the city, and the Hiera Cremata, which was dedicated to the goddess and only used for religious purposes.
And now let's learn more about the Parthenon treasury. At the height of its power, Athens' 2 main sources of revenue were the silver mines of Lavrion and the contributions paid by the allied cities of the Delian League. The Delian League began in 478 BCE as an alliance of around 150 Hellenic cities, all headed by Athens. Its aim was to free the Greek cities under Persian oppression. The allies, whose number eventually grew to 300 as a consequence of numerous victories, contributed troops and money, the latter of which was stored in the sanctuary of Apollo at Delos, a small holy island in the Aegean. After the Persians were defeated, the allies started to resent Athens and its constant demands for troops and money. Athens ruthlessly quelled every revolt and transferred the allied treasury to the Acropolis, gradually transforming the league into its own empire. In fact, part of Sparta's success during the Peloponnesian War was determined by their promise to give the Athenian allies their freedom back, which earned the city lots of support.
And what did you think of the Acropolis? It truly is quite something, isn't it? A sacred sanctuary and an architectural marvel, all in one. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You're confident enough for a test? Very well. Let us see how much you know. Which two gods competed for Athens' patronage? Correct. It was Poseidon and Athena who fought for Athens' patronage. As for who won, the answer is in the city's name. On to the next question. Who sculpted the statue of Athena in the Parthenon? Correct. The renowned sculptor Phidias made the statue, which was considered one of his masterpieces. And now, the final question. Which king's tomb was believed to be under the caryatid porch? That is correct. Cecrops was the mythological first king of Athens, and his tomb was said to be under the Erechtheion. It seems you know much about this place. Well done, wanderer. Hopefully we will see each other again soon.
I hope you like this new idea for an episode. Please let me know if you like it, you don't like it, what you liked the most about it, what you didn't like about it. If you would like me to change anything in it, I'm all ears. I'm always open to suggestions. And don't forget to take the link, go to my website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. There you will find the video, the full experience of this guided tour. And also there is a comprehension check where you can check your understanding of these things you just listened to, or even better, watched. And of course, I have to remind you every single time, there is this second link that will take you to my Patreon page. Please take the link, go there, support us, support this learning community, become part of our supporting family. Help me help our learning community survive, grow, and even thrive. With your support, nothing is impossible. And that is everything for today. Thank you very much for listening. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.